Hi there. My name is Sarah Daniels. I am the writer and story director for Welcome to Primrose Lake. And on behalf of Iwin Gamehouse and Square Root of Tree, the studio behind the magic, I would like to welcome you to our very first Q&A. And actually, I would love to have everyone else here with me, but since they can't be here, I am going to put up a picture of Square Root of Tree because they are certainly here in spirit, and the game does not exist without them. So, because Primrose is a special place, there are no cell towers or internet connection, and they kind of like it that way. I thought to honor the town, instead of reading all of the questions off of a device, we would go the old-fashioned way, a little analog thing. So thank you to everyone who sent in questions. We can't make these games without you. We think about the fans whenever we make the games. It's vitally important to us that you get to play, that you enjoy your experience, and to have you along for the journey. So let's start at the first one, which is a very practical question. Will Primrose Lake be mobile only, or will it be out on PC? So Primrose Lake will be out on all devices. It will be released in 17 languages on iOS, Android, PC, and Mac, and eventually it will be out on Steam and the Switch as well. So, if you are in, today is the 9th of August, so if you are in Canada, New Zealand, Australia, the Netherlands, or Poland, Square Root of Tree is a Polish studio. So the game is out there on iOS and Android right now, and it will be everywhere next week, August 15th. Though not Switch and Steam. That's coming. We don't have dates yet. As soon as we have dates, we'll release them. Will the game be free, or do I need to pay? Yes. It is a premium game. But you will get to play a demo. So the first hour or so, the first chapter, you can play for free. And then on the mobile devices, there are paywalls along the way, so you can purchase the game in stages, or buy it with your Gamehouse Original Stories subscription, or buy the whole thing, and we thank you for it. Can I play the game offline? Yes. So the nice thing about it being a premium game is once you get the game downloaded onto your device, it is yours, you have it. Go to the beach, go to the mountains, enjoy your summer vacation. And I do recommend, because it's a fairly hefty game, that you connect to a Wi-Fi service while downloading it. It'll just go faster. But once it's down on your device, you've got it. Go wild. How long is the game? I'm not going to finish it in a few hours, am I? No. If you do, our hats off to you. I don't even know how that would be possible. So, it normally takes me 12 to 16 hours to play the whole game. And I've played it a few dozens upon dozens times. So, I would say if you skip the story, which I don't recommend, but if you're literally just trying to go as fast as you possibly can to beat the game, you'll still play about 10 to 12 hours. So it's a lot of game. It is 60 time management levels, and interspersed in those time management levels are 20 mystery locations. The game's a little different, so we've got 80 levels total, but it's a little bit of a different format, and I think we'll get to that question down the road here. I don't have time to play a lot of games. Will there be a difficulty setting because I'm not very good? Oh, yes, of course, there's a difficulty setting. If you go in through the main menu into the settings, at any point in time while you're playing the game, you can change the difficulty level. So if you get halfway through and you find that it's just really, really hard, you can go in and make it easy. If you are killing it and you want it to be harder, you can go in and crank it up to expert. And we also have hints and tips that you can turn on and off. Is there a main character? I love Gamehouse Original Stories, and I love Emily and Allison and Angela and Amy and Amber and Maggie and Sally and all of the characters. And so do we. But no. Primrose is a little different. So it will feel as though we have two main characters, Jenny and Jessica. You'll be introduced to them at the very beginning of the game. But The game actually follows the stories of everyone in the town. And so, much like a television series, instead of just following along with one individual, there are all of these branching plots. And so you'll get to meet a whole cast of characters. And as a matter of fact, one of the key differences for Primrose versus any of the other time management games is that we don't have a character where you follow their hero's journey all the way through from location to location to location. So when you arrive in the town, you will be in the cafe with either Jenny or Jessica. But if you go to the general store, you'll meet Glenn and Fiona, who run the general store. If you go to Adventure Island Rentals, you will meet Jake, who runs his lovely kayak and adventure business right there on the island. If you go to the sawmill, you might run into Chip Evans. If you go to the diner, you will probably run into Doc Brown, who spends most of his day there. He's doing it right. He's sitting there eating pie and drinking coffee most of the time. And with Suge and Mags, who run the diner, who are a lovely couple who have been together forever and know each other inside and out. And if you go to the bookstore and the Primrose Lake Preservation Society, you will meet Rebecca Evans, who, as it turns out, might be one of my favorite characters in the game. She's crafty. She's very smart, and I think she knows more than everybody else. Oh, and of course, Sheriff Dalton, Peggy Dalton, is in the game, and who you've seen if you've been on the Facebook page. So, yeah, it's a whole cast of characters. Will any of the delicious characters be in the game? So, no. So, Primrose Lake was created as an independent game in cooperation, or rather partnership, between iWin, Square Root of Tree, and me. So we created our own universe, and it's kind of off on its own. So if you are fans of the Gamehouse original stories and you're familiar with that universe, you will not see any cameos of any characters from the other games. If there's not a main character, what is the game about? Well, the game is about secrets. It's a town full of people who are trying to hide from the world, which sometimes sounds like a really nice thing. So when we first get there, we do follow Jenny, who has literally just fled the altar. She's the quintessential runaway bride, and as she leaves without a plan in the world, she gets lucky enough to be picked up by Jessica, who is on her way home to Primrose Lake. So for the first installment, the game follows their journey as they arrive in the town and they meet our cast of characters. But it's about so much more than that. Sheriff Dalton is there investigating something. Something's going on. Like I say, I think Rebecca has an interesting agenda. She's fairly clever, and she has some plans. Jake, I think Jake was more than a handsome beach bum. I mean, I could tell you, but I would ruin the game. It is a mystery. So I would just go play. What makes Primrose Lake different? I can only buy so many games. Okay. Well, that's fair enough. Primrose Lake is different because it is a place. So if you'll notice right off when you start up the game that instead of following, again, that linear journey where you see all of the levels unlock, you come to town and unlock the map as you go along. We do not go and say, like, you're at the cafe or you're at the general store or you're at this location, then you're locked into this location, because it is a game that has branching storylines a lot the way, or rather, much like you would see for a television show. So instead of just focusing on one person and what's happening in their immediate world, so we only know what they know, we actually go off on all of these branching plots, following all of these different characters. So because of that, within the time management levels, there are actually mystery levels interspersed throughout. And in addition to that, you will actually see one-off mini games. You will see a whole cast of characters, different people running different environments, and what else? Oh, and it's not your typical restaurants. This is important. So it's not like we're running restaurants or you're doing one thing in every single location. So oftentimes if you're playing Angela, you're making clothes. If you're playing an Emily game, you're running a restaurant. If you're playing Alison Hart, you're in a hospital, right? There's this thematic device where every environment you go to, it's the same but different. And in Primrose Lake, each location is genuinely different. What you're doing in the general store is a genuinely different experience than what you're doing at Adventure Island Rentals or what you're doing in the cafe or the diner or the bookstore. So in that way, it's a very different game. Where did you get the idea for the story? We wanted to make a game that was different. So what we find is in story games, they tend to be very female focused and one aspect of femininity, right? You often find a female character who goes out and proves she can do it. She's taking on the world and she's going to have it all. And I love those stories. Those are great stories, but we thought there were a lot more stories that we could tell, and that there were a lot more places that the story game audience would follow us to. And so we sat down and talked about Twin Peaks. So Square Root of Tree, their original concept was they wanted to build a game that felt like Twin Peaks, where there was this sense of mystery and a little weirdness, and you're never quite comfortable in your skin. And when we started talking, I said, okay, how about if we take that and we kind of wet it with something like Northern Exposure? So you're still in the mountains, you're still in the woods, but now you've got some humor thrown in, a little bit of quirkiness. It's not quite as dark, it's not quite as esoteric, right? There are people there that you can relate to, but there's that high sense of mystery. And then added into that, the other original concept was we wanted a case of mistaken identity. Square Root of Tree said to me, we have this idea in our head where two people arrive in this town and one of them is supposed to be there and the other one's an imposter. All right, we can work with that. So that's where the game came from, and that's where the idea came from. And then as we went down the path and started developing the game and actually writing the story, we discovered that what we really wanted was a place that we could come back to game after game after game, where we really never ran out of stories, where we didn't have to do something wild and esoteric to kind of perpetuate the franchise, but that we had such an exact sense of place that by nature everyone who came to this place would fit in to the story elements that we had established. So that sense of having a secret, that sense of hiding from something, that sense that not everything is quite right. Because think about it, there's a reason why a person would want to go to a town nestled in the height of the Rocky Mountains where they can't get cell signal or an internet connection. They probably all have stories to tell. What made you decide to make a story game in the first place? Will there be any more? We certainly hope so. We have we have the next two games basically sketched out. We know what stories we want to explore for at least the next two games, and I think while we're working on those, the next two games after that will spring to mind, and so on and so on and so on. Why make a story game? We love stories. Everyone who's involved in this game believes fundamentally in the power of stories. For myself, it's what makes us human. I think it is the most interesting way to connect with other human beings. It's not a lecture, it's not an opinion, it's not something happening over there. When you hear a story, you can put yourself into it. You can relate to the characters. You can find something that speaks to you. So that's powerful, and we're at an interesting time where we're surrounded by technology all the time. It's not like when video games first started and we were following little blips on the screen. It's not Pong or Asteroids, where any sort of narrative is a stretch, really. So we thought, well, let's tell a story first and then make a story worth playing. And that's kind of the approach to the game. And for Square Root of Tree and for myself, it's kind of our approach to all games. We want to make stories worth playing. So I guess the question would be, why wouldn't we make a story game? Stories are awesome. What's the actual name of the game? Is it really Welcome to Primrose Lake? Yes. Yes, it is. And it wasn't originally. We were just calling it Primrose Lake for the longest time, and then our talented artists and animators created that opening scene, which you can kind of see behind me, where the car comes in and then you go down into town, and it just seems so natural that the title would be the sign welcoming you to the town. And as we went along and realized, oh, this is a place. We will keep coming back here. People will keep coming back here. The same stores will be there. The same characters will be there. We'll change the gameplay. We'll add in extra things. We'll switch it up a little bit. But fundamentally, every time somebody comes to Primrose, we'll be saying, welcome to Primrose Lake. Welcome. Come join us in the town. And so, on behalf of everyone involved in making the game, Iwin, Gamehouse, and Square Root of Tree, I am Sarah Daniels, and it is my great pleasure to be the first to welcome you to Primrose Lake.